Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me well. This is first time, so I hope this will go really okay. Oh guys, I'm so stressed about this. Okay, so maybe we should start. Yeah, it's about time. First of all, my name is Matt. I am a digital painter and I do this full time, so it's not a hobby right now, but for most of my life it was. And yeah, I'm working mostly for some tabletop games, some smaller or bigger publishers, and some illustrations for books, like RPG stuff. And I'm doing this for like a year. Yeah, a year and a half, something like that. So basically this is my job. And I hope everything's loud and clear. If anyone's watching, can you give me a hint if you can hear me? Well, just let me check it. Okay, everything's fine. So, what this is all about? This is the first session, and we'll be having, for now, I have planned 3 sessions. The very first one will be about the process of this guy. So, I'll maybe show you later how it looks. And sorry about that distraction. And today we'll be talking about setting colors for this particular illustration and how to make your colors really live and how to push them. Some few cheats and techniques that I am using to achieve the colors that I really want. Yeah, we will go into this one in a minute. This is today's audition. The next week will be live Critcast, so I will ask you if you are interested in posting your art at probably a Facebook page, Facebook post, and I will choose a few items, a few arts, and yeah, I will tell you basically what I think could be improved. And don't get me wrong, I am no in a position of high pro guy. I'm not thinking about it about myself, but I think that sometimes good critic can help you grow, and this is only thing that I want to help. So if you think that my current skill level allows me to help you, then yeah, be welcomed to send the art onto my Facebook post. I will post it today later. So don't post it randomly, just wait for the proper post, and then in comments drop your artwork. And the next week, next Monday at 9 PM GMT +1, I will check out your art and yeah, we'll go through it. This will be next week, and in 2 weeks we'll be talking about starting as a freelancer. How to start and how to set up your very first and basic price per art, because some people told me that there is not too much maybe set about pricing your art, especially on the real lower level. So this will be in 2 weeks, yeah. And today we'll be talking about this. So as you can see, I have yeah, we can start it. Okay, so as you can see, I have my line art already set up. But first of maybe we'll talk about line art next time. I want to share with you also how I do sketch, but this is more about coloring, because I think with colors many people will have a little struggle how to achieve your best colors, not best line art, because line art is just an anatomy. If you have a good anatomy and good sense of composition, you're there. What I do before I will do anything, this is my basic setup for the line art before I start to sketch anything. So yeah, what you need to remember about creating, setting up the colors for your piece is the like range of your values. So first of all, what I always prepare is basic sketch of values in the painting. So I go with really round basic brush without any fancy stuff, unless you're into it, and I just do like one value, like this dark, maybe lighter if it doesn't matter, and the second one. And this is the basic setup that I do, and then I go and try to make it deeper. So yeah, in this case I've tried to deeper the background of this dude, so he can pop up a little more, and also add some values in the places that I thought should be darker, because they are either further or covered or under anything. So like in this example, this should have, of course, darker value than this one, this piece under his chest. So under his arm, he's got like a darker value, so I just set up on multiply some light gray and darken it a little. If you're thinking about how do I achieve something like that, connecting only this layer, this is called like clipping mask. So this is basically the layer. As you can see, it goes really out of the edges of the character, and I'm not concerned about it. I just do it like this, right click and create clipping mask, and this will make like a mask with the layer that is underneath, so it will never go out of the edges or the pixels of the layer below it. But this is still like movable, so I can like move it around if I want. I can erase it, but the layer below will be like always the mask for the layer that is clipped to it. Okay, next I am going a little bit higher with the highlights. So I have like the more into the range of the whole like shadows, midtones and highlights. Okay, so maybe I should prepare and describe it a little. So in your process, you need to like control three things. You need to control your shadows that are like in this range, that are really dark. You need to control your midtones that are in here, and you need to control your highlights. And this is very basic. Controlling those three things, so shadows, midtones and highlights, and the basic form will help you like achieving everything. When you need to master it. The colors are the third thing, but the values are, I think, most important in the whole process. Okay, so in here we have like only midtones and the shadows, and we want to like expand this range. Hue and saturation. Okay, the question is, can you explain what is hue and saturation, how to use them? The hue and saturation are for the colors. We'll get into that. Yeah, for now let's just focus on the values, and we are talking only about black and white painting. So right now in here we have midtones and shadows, and we go, and I am trying to add a little bit of highlights to expand it further and even wider. So basically, before I start to paint anything, this is maybe not paint, color and anything, this is my basic setup. So I have like a little bit more of a range of this thing. So I have a little bit into shadows, a little bit into midtones and some highlights. I don't want to be extreme with the whole process, because this doesn't look any good after coloring. So I need to like hold everything closer to midtones, at least in my process. Okay, so this is it. This is the preparation before anything, and this is the final effect that we want to achieve. This is why we will go through the whole process of it. And just let me a moment for preparation. Just hold on, everyone. Okay, so this is the process of me painting. A little bit speed up, we'll just jump through it to check out everything that we consider worthy. Okay, so the basic very first thing that I do is setting up my basic mood. This is by creating, yeah, I've merged everything so it won't be like jagged. I created a mask so my colors won't go away of my composition. And now basically, and we'll stop in here, I am using gradient map, and this is an effect in Photoshop that allows you to like just give me a moment, we'll delete this mask and we'll add it in this mask. Okay, so this effect allows you to map your whole painting, starting from the shadows through the midtones to highlights, and each color is assigned to each like value. So for example, in here we have dark that will be in shadows. I can make it like light red, I can make it black, I can make it a little bit blue. So you have basic range for everything. And then midtones, of course, and the highlights. And you can adjust it so it, for example, if you hold it, you can go through one side and more toward the shadows, and also through those little clips you can control it better for the effect. Now the reason I am doing at the start is to like set up the basic mood. I do not paint the whole painting using gradients, because what I found is that a lot of paintings that are made with this technique, like they like they look dull, the colors do not mash up well, so it looks more like artificial than natural. So I am using this only for a base to set up the mood, not like because what people do often is, for example, if I have this dude, and if I want for him to have only like the red mask, then I will just mask everything around it. Of course, this is like basic. It's voila, my mask is done. It's painted out. And this is approach that I really ditched, because each element is like separate and they are not well mixed, and colors in our eyes do mix. So you need to avoid like cheating too much with this technique. This is good for the base of the painting, not for the whole process, and maybe for some elements, but not the whole process. Okay, so using the gradient, I am setting up my colors. As you can see, I am looking up for them. By the way, the whole process is speed up, so don't stress about it. It should be speed up. It's not. Never mind. The whole coloring process took me like an hour or so. So I really wanted to go for the violet vibe, because the guy on the image is a rogue, so I wanted the colors to convey that. And yeah, basically I am adjusting my highlights in here. As you can see, I've used, for example, 2 colors in the midtones and the 1 color in the shadows, and maybe we'll skip for the final effect. Yeah, we'll just stop like in here. So this is it, and this is the base. Now we can go for further next things. Now I really wanted the guy to have white mask. So what I did is making another layer on the overlay, and just setting it to white, and then using it. What I do most of the times is use those layers effect. So I use a few examples to check out how the colors do blend. And maybe I will show you what is the final effect, because in here we have all this. Sorry for a little bit chaotic form on this one. I hope you don't mind. We'll check it out. Okay, so we have right now base form. Yeah, and what I did, I've made a gradient map for the mask 2. And then the mask also changed because I did made an overlay layer higher, I believe. So, and what I was thinking about blending colors, you can see that I'm not very strict or very detailed with those colors, because there will be time for this. I like how the colors on the edges do blend, because this allows me to be more flexible with the colors and see how they mix together on the edges, and they are not looking so artificial with everything. Okay, the next thing was adding also gradient map for those things, those this is jacket or cape or something like that, because I want why I've used the gradient map is because I knew that the colors will be further away from the violet, so if the blending mouse wouldn't support that, and that's why I just dumped the gradient map. But as you can see, this is really rough. This blends all together. The next stage was, for example, setting up the boots and everything in here. So I've used map on overlay that had a little brown color, because I wanted for his gloves, shoes and belt the same Okay, the question, it's better to use brush modes or layer modes when coloring. I don't know what you mean by brush modes. Oh, okay, I do know. You mean by in here. I do not use them because I cannot change them later. I do experiment a lot doing my painting. Okay, let's go a step back a little. I have like basic idea of how I want the colors to look like, and my goal is to get in there by allowing myself a little bit like experimentation on the go. So why I'm talking about what I'm not using the brush modes, because this process creating just new layers on the modes allows me to experiment. For example, this is what happens in here. I'm just setting up my mask for overlay. I am changing it to color. It's not satisfying. I'm going back, I believe, to divide because I really like that effect. Or maybe for overlay. No, I've just duplicated. Just give me a moment. Okay, so I've set up on divide, and now I can adjust this layer. So this effect, I can change its color. It's a little bit of experimentation and trying to get to the point where I am satisfied with the color. Okay, let's roll back to the file. Okay, now we have this one, so we can see this is just a brown color made of an overlay, but it doesn't end there. On top of that, I gave like on normal blending mode. Yeah, okay. So this is just a gradient on top of the overlay thing, and also on top of that there was another gradient map. So everything to achieve this effect. Next, the gold like strips around the shoes, around here in the gloves, and some on the belt. I think I ditched them in later on overlay. Next thing was just creating this shape underneath, and that I've used on color on lower opacity because it didn't like satisfy me on 100% on opacity. I wanted it to be like more blended in, so I've just lowered the opacity of it, darkened the cape, and at this stage you can see that I am using everything so it would match up with the gradient map that I have in the background. This is why I set up the gradient map at the very beginning, to like have those colors close to each other, have like a point of value, point of color that helps me control everything. Because often I see people drawing and the colors are all over the place. The red is very bright red, the green is very bright green, and they just don't match up well together. You need to have a point when you can like go and check out if it works well together, and this is why I set up the gradient map at the very beginning, to help me achieve this, to help create colors that are relative. And yeah, this is it, because look up, this brown in here, it's not really that brown, it's more saturated. If I would show you a real brown leather glove and set up with this color, they would look different. This is all because of the color relativity. So colors against each other look differently. Some may be less saturated. So this map at the very beginning helps you easy to like hold together everything. So right now we have used a few like layer styles few times, a gradient map. Yeah, in here I'm using okay, next question is if I am starting everything from the grayscale. Basically yes, but I am trying to only use grayscale as my really rough base, because what you can see later is that different colors have different like red for different values. So for example, reds do not have that wide range of values, so using like a very complicated grayscale is not good. But yeah, I am starting everything from the grayscale, very rough, like the one that I've shown before, something like this. So there is only a line art and rough grayscale, and then jumping into coloring. So the next one is shirt, also with gradient map. You can see how much different it is compared to the other gradient setup. And now for the gold element in here, for example, I've used my overlay layer, and with basic color that is like this. And what I do often is I, for example, set up my layer on overlay, go to adjustment, hue saturation, and then just experiment. So I could have like really a different color. That is why I am using opened layer. So I can experiment, I can set up my ideas and let myself go. I have in mind what I want to draw. It's not like very, oh, let's go and it will work out somehow. No, I have in mind what I want to do, but I really try to be open with what I can change in meantime, during process. And it often works out, because in my mind everything looks awesome and better, and on the page not always. No. Okay, so next gradient map, and now we go into some layers. So we have darken, and also here is a fine example. Right now everything looks really flat, and all the colors, if I would go and give a quick look for the hue and saturation, everything looks flat as hell, and we don't want that. We want everything to be in like the wider range of shadows, midtones and highlights. So I've created another layer that is set up on multiply, and lowered in its opacity, because at the 100% it was too hard, so I lowered it and set up to multiply. Now with multiply layer, okay, I will answer the question in a minute. I just wanted to talk about the multiplier. Often I see that people use multiply in a bad way. Colors do not just go darken. They do not change their values from midtones to shadows, only adding darker, only like adding black paint. They often shift their value. So for example, if we go to the reds, and if they will go more into the shadows, if you want a really smooth realistic effect and not muddy colors, do not just change the darkness of the color, shift its value. So for example, let's go with here. Let's go in here, let's make some red ball. Okay. Sorry, it's hidden. Come on. It's messing here. Okay. create clipping mask. And instead of just going going darker, so the basic effect would be right here. If you would go just for the darker value, we'll duplicate it here. And what we want to achieve is more alive color and not muddy colors. We want to go a little bit darker, but also switch value, and you can do it in the either way. It's not always down, you can go up and down, but right now you can see how these colors, maybe even more darker, okay, something like that, like this color goes really more alive. Yeah, you can see how this one just goes straight to black, this one goes into like color shift, and this allows us to like make something more alive. That is a little bit harder example, but continuing this thing, if you would go basically with the highlights, some people just go lighter, and this is it, what I am trying to convey, to tell you to go to the other side a little, just a little bit, and you can see the example of it. This one looks dull, this one looks really flat, and this one looks really more interesting. And you need to remember that highlights and midtones and shadows, they need to differ in the material, they need to go towards different values of the color. Okay, going for the question. So if I know starting from the values how I want to my colors be at the end, something like that, sorry for bad translation. You know what, starting this one, I really wanted to just set up the values of the planes, so I needed to know if the character will be lighter compared to its background, or on the other side, if a character will be just a dark silhouette on really bright background. This is what I am trying to convey with values, like in this sketch. I am more thinking not in the terms of color, but I would paint in a gray clay, so without any materials. It's just gray clay, and I'm just trying to paint up the highlights and the shadows of a basic white sculpture. So I won't get confused with the colors, and I would stick with the shapes and everything. Okay, so we did manage to, in our process, add shadows. Oh, and let's go back to multiply. What I do see a lot is just people like creating a multiply layer and putting in black color in there. Do not put black color in a multiply layer style. Put a color in there. What I did in here, this is light, a little bit yellowish brownish color. I did not want to put in black in there, because if I would do that, the effect would be like those two balls that I showed you. It would go just into black, and I want my colors to switch to different color a little in the shadows, from the midtones into the shadows, to switch colors. Okay, next one is just basically coloring everything, and we'll go into fun part in a while, because yeah, it's just basically adding colors to different materials. materials. And yeah, the green stuff on top, the poison, everything. The gold in here, this is also made from the gradient map. The frame. And now we go to some fun stuff. So why I've used this one. Right now this one looks a little bit dull on the side that there is no contrast between the character and the background. So I needed to add either to character on the background some different colors so they will have contrast. And because basically right now it's a little really dark from each side, so the character in values and the background are really close to each other, and I wanted to differentiate it, I don't know how to say it, so they would like go a little bit further away. So I've added the blue color on overlay. Yeah, this was a greenish color on overlay. And it helped me to like more translate the silhouette of the character. So you have like beside contrast of values, you have also contrast of colors. Yeah, some further overlay, and right now we are going to highlights. This is still dull. This is still like flat. This is why I wanted to add this thing. And this is one of the few layers that are left that I am using to hold colors together. Because often at this stage the colors are trying to run away from each other because they are losing the basic thing, the basic gradient map at the very beginning. Yeah, this is how it looks if I would just switch that out. And I want to hold them together. So overall, over everything, I am using a light overlay color. This is how it looks without the effect, for example. And this helps me to like make colors more together. And what I'm trying to like say in here, colors should tend towards each other in both places, in shadows and in highlights. So if you're painting, it is good often, so most of the colors tend to go into the shadows into the same value. So for example, if you're making something more red in color, you tend to use everything going towards the red color. And if you're painting, like in my example, in violet or something like that, I don't know, color, you tend to make each shadow going through that color. And the same thing goes for the highlights, for example in here, because highlights not always work the same way, but you want to like go maybe closer to each other. That's why I'm using one layer that is with the same color on each material, and just go over them to help push the highlights. Next one is here. Why I have used this? This is because I want this leg to be further in frame. This is also the next thing that I see people doing really bad, because most of the time, if you want something to be pushed away, you tend to, artists tend to just go darker with it, and you shouldn't do that. It's on the opposite thing, because if something is further away, the color gets less saturated, not darker. If you see a building further away from you, it's not darker, it's less saturated. the color seems like blend more together, and that is why when I used this layer, I just wanted to push the like more into the background. That's why I've used the color from the background and just put it on the lesser opacity, and it helped me like make the illusion that the guy comes out of the frame. Now what is really nice to help control your values in different stages is this little effect that it is named color balance. You can add it in here, so you can where you can add a new layer, you have that small icon, and here you can add color balance. This helps you control your overall values. So this is a subtle change at this point because they hold up altogether somehow, but you can like change and go into the shadows and just make them more into the blue, more into the red, however you wish. This helps you put together colors. This helps you like ease them together more likely and not lose their saturation. Because there is a second effect that helps you also go with different saturations, but it's not in here right now. Let's not talk about it. Okay, here some fixes for the multiply, and again, multiply is not black. It's like pinkish color, and it is set up lightly to 57% on multiply, because yeah, it still looks flat, so you can see the change in here. This is something that I often use, so I create just a hue saturation layer, set it to 0 saturation, and just look from time to time to check out my values, and you can see the difference between this one and this one. You can see some things pumping out more, and you need to try to push those things against each other. Next one, we have highlights, and now we have divide, when normally this is like again greenish color, and at last we have something like selective color. And I can see this is not something used overused in here, but this one helps you also, as much as color balance, hold together your colors. So for example, I am using in here just a slight variation for neutrals and blacks. Those two just tends to like interest me mostly. So we have blacks, and I can, as you can see, push them a little bit more and or less, and you can also make something like that and push colors instead of black. So you, instead of pushing black towards forward and making the colors dull, because we do not want to go darker with black, we want to go darker using other colors. So yeah, so instead of pushing just black further, we are using different like cyan, magenta and yellow, and adding those three colors more instead of just using black. But this was just a slight variation, just +6. So it's like, I am adding 6 points and it is more awesome. And the last one is brightness and contrast. And for example, this is it. As for the colors, now at this stage I am starting to mainly render it. So I would just zoom in. I can show you how the process looks a little. So yeah, you can see that I am just using on the different layers. I am zooming in and just blocking the shapes, painting them out, using the colors. What I tend to use is color picker a lot, I do pick colors a lot from the colors that I have created previously. So not new colors that I just pick from the color wheel or something like that. I do this sometimes, but not that often. But I do zoom in and just pick colors from the existing ones. This helps me hold the colors together, not make them run away from each other. Okay, let's go further a little, because yeah, we'll be finishing it soon. So yeah, as you can see, this is me using color picker and just going through the details and trying to convey form a little bit more. But this is just a topic for the next thing. This one was just setting up your colors and how to maybe make colors that are alive, that are more towards something exciting, not muddy. Avoid using muddy colors. Muddy colors are bad. And yeah. So, as again, you have your midtones, highlights, and shadows. You need to control them. And your colors need to differ between midtones, shadows, and highlights. They need to switch. Also, what you need to remember is that each color has different values. And we can see it easily on those two red things in here. Okay, they are not so far from each other. Just to not confuse everyone, we'll push them away. Okay, so they are not far away from each other, but you can see there are like highlights, there are shadows. It's easy. Okay, what I see often is artists go for this layer for the hue and saturation and try to push everything further. And for this example, if I would go in here, this is like more mid-tone, but I want it to be like more highlighty. But this, in example, this color is, sorry, this color in here, this is pretty high in here. So the only thing that left for me is to go toward white, but I do not want to make a red that is just white, or switch a color a little bit more towards yellow, so we can go with that. And okay, it kind of switches too much from the color, but it conveys the idea of the highlights. But if I go in here, they're still gray, nothing changed. Because if I go a step back away, it didn't change anything. And you need to remember that not each color has the same range of shadows, midtones, and highlights. Color differ in this. So switching on and off this layer with hue and saturation to check out your values, it's not always a good idea. You need to be able to understand that different colors look different in hue saturation. Some colors will tend more towards highlights. Sometimes colors will just close more into midtones, and there are colors that I have like wide range. And not only talking about the colors, also different materials have different ranges. So, for example, metal will have really dark midtones, a little bit less of, really dark shadows, a little bit less of midtones, and they will go really high for the glossiness, for the highlights. So you need to remember that on checking out your values in the painting, you are always holding up the idea of the color that you are trying to paint. Okay, so this is it for now. Oh, sorry. And yeah, next week I will be doing a small critcast. So if you want for me to check out, but by the way, maybe I should show it right from the start. This is the finished painting for it. So for example, those are the colors that I am starting with. This is something that I am finished with. Maybe just so it would be same thing. Okay, so you can see, for example, they switch a little bit. The biggest change was the vest. I made it into the more darker. But yeah, the basic idea of violet or more bluish color at the end stays. But if you want to check out how this turns out at the end, yeah, this is the basic effect that will be trying to hold on to the next time. We'll be continuing on this one and how I did a few things on this painting in future. As I've told you at the start, the next week will be Critcast. So if you have any work that you want me to check out and maybe help you with, anything that I think maybe could use help, then go into my Facebook fan page. You will have a description. It's like Matthew Mizak Art, and in here I will post new post on my wall, and then you can drop your works in comments, and we'll see each other in the next week at the same hour. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any questions, yeah, the question is about the overpainting. Of course, drop the work on my Facebook fan page, and I will post in a minute, and that way I can overpaint something or just point out the small mistakes. Okay, thank you very much. Hope this one wasn't too chaotic. I need to work on my process of thoughts. Sorry, it's a little bit messy. But yeah, we'll see each other next week with Critcast, and in 2 weeks with basics of freelancing, how to start up. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.